Hey, so I know it's been a quick minute since I've done a video and just wanted to do an update, um, compare, where I was in the program, kind of where I am. We're at a good halfway point right now. We're transitioning from the first half of the intermediate design to the second half of the intermediate design. We're actually getting a new professor on Monday. And so just kind of wanted to make a good lapse of how the program has been so far. My eyes are going to be wandering. I am using notes. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, so if I'm not looking at the camera, that's why. But yeah, let's just get into it. It's going to be a little bit of a rapid fire, just because there's a lot to get through. I'm going to try and go over each individual portion of the program thus far. And just keep in mind, this is a intensive boot camp. And so with that being said, you only get about 1, maybe 3 days of each subject. And when you're doing that, it goes by very fast. And so each individual topic that I'm going to be speaking about, it was only 1 or 2 days. We didn't have a whole week on a subject, kind of like you do in university. I remember when I was in university, we spent, I think, like 2 weeks speaking about mammalogy and, what happens when, elk, they migrate or whatever. I went to school for wildlife, so I mean, it's kind of a weird thing. Nobody does that, but you get the point. We don't do that here in this program. You have this 1 day to learn how to make wireframes and Figma. So just kind of keep that in mind. The last video I was talking about the portfolio. I think we were just presented the portfolio project, if I remember correctly. And since then, I've done, I don't know, like 500 revisions on my portfolio. I haven't liked any of them. I tried using Google Slides, or not Google Slides, Google Pages, which is Google's website builder, and it's free. I liked it, but my professor did not, and so I kind of scratched that. It was a very simple, no animations, no nothing. It was just simple, to the point. It looked professional. I liked it, but they told me no, and so I scratched that. Tried using Squarespace. I did not like it because they wanted some movement in the page, and I didn't have enough free space or free reign over my website with Squarespace. And as much as I was paying, I wanted a lot of free reign. Went over to Wix, same thing. In order to get the pages to parallax, it was horrendous. Now it's very easy if you just want a simple parallax effect, but if you want anything complicated, and I wanted something very complicated. It doesn't work in Wix. I tried Framer, and I will be completely honest, I'm still trying to learn how to use Framer. It is not an easy program to learn. If you can learn it, I'm told that you're that much more valuable in the company, and so I am trying to learn it, but in order just to make a website, it's not worth it right now. I tried to use Carbon-Made. I'm not sure what I didn't like about Carbon-Made. I can't remember, but I didn't like an aspect of Carbon-Made, and so I decided not to go with them. I don't like WordPress. I never have. There's something called Simplist, yeah. And it's a WordPress add-on. A lot of people were raving about it online, and there was even a lady in my cohort who, she's the one who recommended it, and I believe she's using it for her website. And that's great. I hear it works really well for design portfolios, but I decided not to go with it on mine. I tried half a dozen others as well, including one that's specifically made for Mac. I think it's called Blocks. Again, I just didn't like it. They were very limited. And so I decided to go with Webflow. And the reason I chose Webflow is because you can implement your own CSS and HTML if you want, and they have a ton of templates. And so I did. I used a template as a starting point, and then from there, I implemented a lot of my own CSS and HTML, but I also used a lot of the code from the original creator, which is completely allowed. It's open source. It's there for you to use, whether you pay for a template or whether you get a template for free. And they have something called cloning, which if you go into the Webflow community, and you hit clonables rather than templates, you can just clone a website and the website's yours. You just edit it. And so super cool concept. It does take a minute to learn how to use, but there's YouTube videos on it, and it's really cool. I might make a YouTube video later on showing how I do it, because I've had a couple of people ask me from my cohort on how I made my portfolio, because I've shown it to a couple of people. And I will be the first one to say that I did not make most of my portfolio. Most of my portfolio came from the clone. I do have to make my case study pages, but I'm looking for a clone that I can just add. I don't want to put a whole lot of effort into it. I just copy and paste. So, but that's it for the portfolio. After we discussed and started our portfolios, the wireframing was next. And this is where, if you're very artsy, you've been doing art your whole life, you've been, water painting, you've been doing Crayolas, I don't know, I'm not an artsy person. But if you are very artsy, wireframing is definitely going to bring you down to earth. We have a lot of people in my cohort who, they are tremendous artists. And I can draw, but that's about it. I can draw very well. But wireframing is not about detail. It's about taking an idea, throwing it on paper as fast as possible, and turning it into what's called an MVP, a minimal viable product. You don't want to go into detail. And so you just need to learn to understand that, and you'll be able to catch on to wireframing very quickly. It's hard for some people to understand. After wireframing, we did jump back over to the portfolio. You jump around a lot in this program, so you just need to be able to kind of keep a organizer or something. You're going to learn how to build a biography. And I will be the first to admit that I rolled my eyes and I laughed at this, because I thought I knew how to write a biography. I did it a couple of years ago, but apparently I forgot. This was actually very hard for me. And I actually used the one that was on the clone website that I had. It turned out great. The biography mostly talks about myself, and I have a separate biography that kind of talks about why I want to get into UX UI. So it really worked out. Also, my portfolio should be done by the time I release the next video. And I'll probably put a link to it in the description so y'all can see the portfolio when it's finished. We had one major day that was just 6 readings altogether. So every day most days you're assigned 2 readings, one for the morning lecture and one for the afternoon lecture. And so, like I said, you only really have like one day of each topic. Most days you're learning 2 topics the same day. You learn one topic in the morning, which is about an hour and a half to 2 hour lecture. And then in the afternoon, you learn another topic, which is an hour and a half to 2 hours for that lecture. In between, you're in your Discord groups, or you're at lunch. And so we had a day that was 6 readings. And now I don't know if this day was actually planned, because it sure didn't seem like it. I think this may have been caused by me getting the class riled up about why we didn't have any career help available to us. And because what this day was spontaneously, we had to read these 6 readings about networking, and then we had about a 45-minute lecture the next day about networking. And it wasn't very helpful at all. It covered things like you don't get any career coaching until after graduation. The best resource that we have are the people in our cohorts, which is true. Like, I'm not knocking that. And then the school has no partnerships with any companies to help us get jobs. I did speak about this in one of the previous videos, but I do think this is an issue, and I'll touch on it again towards the end of the video. I don't want to get too far into it here in the middle, but let's just move on. I am going to go a little bit faster here. So the 5th and 6th week are very similar. We went over branding in the 5th week. We went over the discover method, the research methods, competitive analysis, user surveys, interviews, building personas, idea mapping, and then what are called open workshops. And open workshops, they're basically, you come to the lecture. He has to hold a lecture. And so you pop in there, he talks about some things, and then he opens up these breakout rooms in Zoom, and you got to go in there and do whatever you want. Most people, to be completely honest, most people are probably just taking a nap during that time. I tended to work on my bus app, which I'll talk about towards the end of the video. And the open workshops lasted for 6 days, like straight. They were 6 days. So I think they were Tuesday to Tuesday. And that was it. So that whole week was just about researching. The following week, we learned about prototyping. And then, oddly enough, we were off for what they called a catch-up week, which most people would like, I guess. But I did not. Prior to the catch-up week, I was actually ahead a week and a half worth of work. Getting back from that catch-up week, me and a lot of other people, we kind of just lost our mojo from being back. Now, I don't know, again, I don't know if they do the catch-up week for all cohorts across all of their studies, or if this was just something that they do for occasional cohorts where the majority of the cohort is falling behind. Every Friday, you get an email that says, hey, you're on track, keep it up, this is what you need to do, blah, 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 blah. And so I don't know how many people in our cohort was falling behind. Maybe this was just like, hey, we have time scheduled for a catch-up week. And so let's take a catch-up week, get everyone caught up. And, talking to some of the cohort mates, it does seem like myself and then the other ones who were a week and a half ahead, we came back and we're like, dang, we got to build that mojo back up, because we're sitting here looking at the assignments and we're just, kind of dull off. And so it's not that I hate that they gave us a catch-up week, but we did kind of lose momentum. And so I did ask prior to the catch-up week if they could release all of the week's post, and they did. And I worked on maybe 1 or 2 assignments, but then I had life come up and I had to deal with that. So I didn't get to work on very much. But we'll talk on that here in a minute. So week 9 was filled with learning or glossing over the develop phase of the design diamond. And because of that, I do want to mention that I recommend to anyone going into any boot camp to use your outside resources. Use YouTube, use people who are designers or developers or whatever. Use books, and then just take it upon yourself to learn outside of sitting in front of your professor. It's not enough. My professor for this first half was amazing. I loved him. He was... I've been in school for 8 years now. By far one of the best professors I've ever had. He's very engaging. He's got a great tone of voice. Everything you can think of that a great professor needs, he's got it. But the material just isn't there. A lot of the material that Thinkful uses can be found open source online, verbatim. They may have 2 or 3 videos. The entire... I don't want to say the entire first half, but they don't have very many videos that they created for the UX UI program. I don't know about the back end or front end or data analyst. I don't know because I'm not taking those. But as far as UX UI go, there's very few videos that they produced that are in your curriculum. Most everything you can find on the web open source. So just take that with a grain of salt. You need to do a lot of your own research in order to be successful in a boot camp. Week 10, we really just wrapped up. It was the end of the junior design phase, and it was the end of the first half of the intermediate design phase. And so we're switching professors now. We're going to go to our final professor. You only get 2 professors, which is great. One thing that I'm not liking, though, is we're in the middle of a design sprint. Or we're in the middle of one design sprint and the end of our first design sprint. The first design sprint is called the bus app. And the second design sprint, the one that we're in the middle of, is called the client project. And so the bus app, I think we talked about it in the previous video. And what it is it's basically a project where everybody is assigned the same parameters, and then you have full design freedom over it, as long as you meet these parameters and do not exceed the parameters. And so it's kind of going to go on everyone's portfolio. It's just going to look a little different. And the client project, I'll talk more about that here in a minute. But the issue that I'm having about switching the professor right now is we have completed this much of the bus app right now. We only have like this much to go, and they're gonna change professors. And so now we have to do this with the new professor. And it just doesn't seem to flow, you know? We haven't gotten to know the new professor. The new professor hasn't gotten to know us. We don't know what he expects of us, anything like that. It's just not flowing well. It may go perfectly fine. I don't know. Me personally, I don't like it. The client project, what that one is about is you're to go out into the real world. You need to find your own client. So everyone's going to have a different case study on their portfolio for the client project. You find your own client. When you find your own client, you now have to keep them for like 2 months before you do anything with them. And they're not gaining anything from this project. And so really they have no motivation to even continue talking to you. What you're going to be doing for this client is you're going to be finding a problem that they have, creating a lo-fi wireframe for them, and then saying goodbye. You're not receiving any pay unless they want you to. And you're not going to be paying them for their time. But this is going to take time out of their day because you have to be able to talk to them. You have to ask them questions of what they want. You have to conduct survey, give them the survey. They have to review it. And so it's going to take time, like probably close to 10 hours total of their time. Time is money. And so they may agree to it when you're first told to go find a client. They may be like, yeah, that's perfectly fine, blah, blah, blah. But then slowly they're going to drop off. I lost my first client, and my client was my sister, who owns her own design studio. I luckily was able to find a second client right before we're going to start the actual client project. And it's actually going to work better. But what I recommend for anybody going through this, when they tell you to reach out to your client and get a client to say yes, either have a lot of backups or wait. Wait until you're just about to switch over to reach out to that client. I'm not saying wait super long, but have a lot of people reach out, find one, and see it where it goes from there. They don't want you to make up a client, but it can be anyone. It can be family. It can be a Fortune 500. It can be a small startup, anything. I'm designing an app that doesn't exist yet. It is going to be designed or developed. And so technically it's a speculative app, but it is in the development phase. So that's what I'm designing. And so kind of like a mid summary of this video, because it's already getting pretty long. They are going to give us new professors on Monday. Is it necessary? I'm honestly not sure. But I don't know. It probably is. Am I the only one irritated by this? No. Are there a lot of people in my cohort irritated by it? I don't know. I know of at least 2. Do I love the first half of the program and would I do it again? Yes. Like no reserve. My professor was amazing and he made the course material worth every second. It was super easy to understand. But would I do the first half of the program again through Thinkful? If the resources were better, yes, I would. But there's a caveat with that. I haven't graduated. And like I said, the career coach who presented to us on that day where we had to read like 6 readings and everything like that, she told us that the career material wouldn't be available to us until after we graduated. So I think there's a lot of potential in Thinkful, but it's just not there yet. And they're just trying to do the bare minimum, it seems sometimes, while everyone else is doing the maximum for their students. And it's not even that much that the other boot camps are doing. Now, GA, they have an apprenticeship agreement with Adobe. And even if you're not in the apprenticeship agreement, even if you're just a regular GA student, they have a career guidance that starts on the first day. Bloom Tech, they used to be called Lambda. The first day, even during your trial, it's a 2-week trial. Now, they don't have a UX UI program. Not yet, at least. They're developing one. But during your first day, during the trial, you get career guidance. They sit you down. They're like, hey, what are your career goals? Blah, blah, blah. If you don't have any, well, these are the paths that you can take with this program. And they have companies that after you graduate, you're guaranteed an interview with. It's how it should be. If you're guaranteeing career help, that's how it should be. But like I said, I think Thinkful has a lot of potential. I don't want to say yes or no on them right now, just because I haven't graduated. Plus, I was told that as long as I know what company I want to work for, which I do, at the 15-week mark, I'm allowed to go ahead and get career coaching. And I'm definitely going to do that. So technically, we're working on 2 design sprints right now. I already went over that. One thing that I can definitely recommend is when you start your bus app, that's the first design sprint. When you work on that, as soon as they say, hey, we're going to start looking into research for this because research is super important, start reading the next 3 days. Like you're going to be on like Tuesday or whatever, and they're going to be like, research, read Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's going to tell you everything that you need to build your survey. The reason this is important is there's 25 people in your class. Those 25 people are going to have damn near the same survey that you have, and they're going to throw it in the same exact places as you. The first person to get the survey launched is the only person to have the respondents. I launched mine 4 days before everyone else, and I took all of the respondents from everybody. I had 113 respondents. Most people, they were lucky to get 5, maybe 10. And so I shared all of my data with the entire class. But the issue is that my data, the way I asked the questions, they were for me. They didn't really make sense to me. And I didn't do it on purpose. It's just I thought that everyone else would get at least 20, which is what the professor was asking for, was 20. But I didn't think that everyone else wouldn't get their 20. I knew that I would have a easier time if I launched mine first, and that's why I did it. But when I shared my data with the class, it just didn't make sense. So make sure that you launch it as soon as possible. Also with the bus app, I haven't done it with the client app, and I haven't done it with the capstone, so I can't say the same for this. But with the bus app and with everything else you do, your mind mapping, your user flows, your user personas, your icons, anything that you're doing, use the Figma community. It's already been done, most likely. So don't reinvent the wheel. Now, I'm not saying to copy. That's plagiarism. But you can always take inspiration from something. And as long as you're not making money off of it, you are fine to use the product. Just make sure that you credit it or buy them a coffee or whatever. But what I've done for my bus app is I grabbed about a dozen, 2 dozen different transportation apps, not bus apps per se, but transportation apps. And I've gone through and I'm like, hey, I really like that icon you have there. And I make my own icon based off of that. Or I like the way that you designed your forgot password page. And I make my own forgot password page off of that. Use it as like a mood board or an idea board or whatever. And it'll definitely help you with your flow of the project. The video is tremendously long. I think we're at like 28 minutes right now. So I want to wrap it up. But I know I said at the beginning of the video that the workload has gotten crazy, but let me explain why my workload has gotten crazy. I'm learning how to do Figma because that's part of the school's curriculum. I'm learning how to do Sketch. I'm learning how to do InVision by Studio. I'm learning how to do Framer, kind of. I kind of stopped that one, so we won't count that. I'm learning how to do Blender, which is a 3D rendering program. I'm learning how to do HTML and CSS. I'm about to start relearning how to do AutoCAD, and another one that I used to use when I was in college. I can't remember what it's called for some reason. But anyways, CAD, which is computer-aided design. I want to relearn how to do that. And so and Adobe XD. So not only am I doing the coursework for the school, but I have taken it upon myself to learn all of these other softwares. For what reason? I have no idea. Will they help me land a job? I'm hoping so. But my day starts at like 5 a.m. and I usually don't get off of the computer until right about 1. And so that's why my workload has gotten so heavy, is not because of the school. I finish my schoolwork at like 1 or 2. I don't start my schoolwork until right around 10, an hour after we log in, and I'm done at 1. If I wasn't doing all these extracurriculars, I would have all the time in the world, but because I'm doing all these extra steps, that's why my workload has gotten so big. This school is, I don't want to say easy, because I know it's not easy for everyone, and I'm trying to be mindful of that, but it's not intense. It's going to get intense, I'm hoping, but as of right now, with this bus project and just barely starting the client project, so far it is not an overwhelming amount of work. It's fine. It's not intense. It's fine. It keeps you busy. Could you have a part-time job with this? I could. There's about 4 people in the class who work. One's a full-time professor of high school. She teaches medicine in high school. Another one works at Topgolf. There's one who is a restaurant manager, like a GM of a restaurant. And there's another one who works at a car dealership. And so, yeah, you could definitely have a job with this if you can manage the course material. And that's up to you. I know some people, like, straight up, you have to work to pay your bills. I'm lucky enough that I'm not in a situation where that's going to kill me to take these 5 months off. But the course material is easy enough, at least this first half, to be able to do it in the time of lecture and Discord. So just keep that in mind. You get 5 absences. Do not use them. It's been a big pain point for a lot of people in the cohort this first half. And so just kind of keep those in mind. This school so far, I think it's a pretty great school. I'm not gonna lie. I know there's some things that I do and I don't like about the school, but overall, I think this is a great school. They've got a great purpose, a great set of staff, and the material, I know that it's going to prepare me to go out and find a job, whether I do it on my own or I do it with the resources that they provide. I've already applied for one apprenticeship. I applied for Microsoft Leap. I sent that in yesterday, so we'll see if that turns into anything. But I'm super excited to see where this all goes. I am going to go ahead and post more videos as time falls through. But I wasn't really sure if this video was really worth posting. So if it is, or if I didn't cover anything, please just leave a comment and ask your questions, because that's the easiest way for me to know what content to provide for you. The last thing that I do want to go over is, the mentor has been increasingly more useful. I know I said in like that first video that he's useless, but I've actually found a really good use for him. When you turn in an assignment that's graded, or even one that's not graded, when it's graded, you either get pass or fail, and that's pretty much it. You don't get much feedback. So what I've started to do is, if I get an assignment and it's pass, I'll take it to my mentor and I'll be like, hey, I passed this assignment. What can I do better? Because there's always room for improvement. And so that's what I started to use my mentor for, is here's my assignment, says I passed, what can I do better? So he's kind of like my grader, is my mentor. But I just wanted to point that out. The mentors are actually useful for some things. I'm using him for anytime I design something, I send it to him and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this? I've been using him on my portfolio. So the resources that I've been using are pretty helpful. I don't use any of the TAs because I can find everything online, which does lead me to one last point. Do I see a benefit of Thinkful over an online course? I don't really have an answer for that yet. A lot of the material that I get put in front of me is straight off of the internet. It's you can search it and it's there free. But like a lot of the students in my cohort says, they're not paying 15,000, I think it is. They're not paying that for an education. They're paying that to help them find a job. So I guess the only way that I can say is it helpful or is it more valuable than an online course is when I graduate. So I don't want to answer that yet, because I have been really liking my experience at Thinkful. But overall, I think that's all I have for this video. Like I said, if I missed something or you are finding the videos useful, just let me know in the comments or any other way. I don't know how YouTube works, honestly. But yeah, let me know if I missed anything or if you have any questions, and I'll post another video. This has kind of slipped my mind. I was thinking about it the other day, which is why I was going to post this video. So, but I appreciate it, guys. And just let me know if you're thinking